Hey guys, here we go again. Another week on Oak Island, where mud, mystery, and hope collide in spectacular fashion. We are looking at episode 15 of season 13, aptly titled Swamped, and honestly, it looks like it's setting up one of those pivotal moments fans live for. You know the vibe, the kind of episode where the show hints that years of digging, drilling, draining, and debating might finally be converging on something real. Premiering on February 24, 2026, the episode promises stunning events in the Money Pit area, alongside a potentially historic discovery in the swamp. That combination alone is enough to raise eyebrows. Historically, the series tends to focus on one major zone per episode, giving us a dedicated swamp week or a Lot 5 week, so the fact that both the Money Pit and the swamp are active suggests a convergence of storylines that have been developing for over a decade. Let's break down what makes episode 15 feel different and why it might matter more than the usual wood-sniffing and iron object debates. The Money Pit has always been the emotional center of the curse of Oak Island. It's where the legend began, where previous searchers lost fortunes and lives, and where Rick and Marty Lagina have poured the bulk of their time, money, and optimism. In season 13, the team's approach has felt more deliberate and technologically aggressive than in earlier years, and Swamped seems poised to escalate that momentum. We aren't just slamming cans into the ground anymore. With the reinforced garden shaft and advanced muon tomography data, the team is hunting specific, high-probability targets. Look for the intersection of the deep drilling program with the tunnel systems hinted at in previous seasons. If the promo materials are to be believed, we aren't just looking for wood splinters. We are looking for a structure, perhaps offset chambers, or the elusive flood tunnels that have baffled engineers for 2 centuries. Then, there is the swamp. For years, the skeptical view was that it was just a swamp. But between Dr. Ian Spooner's geoscience and the discovery of the Stone Road, the narrative has pivoted to the theory that the swamp is a man-made device, an artificial body of water created to hide a ship or conceal the back end of the Money Pit's hydraulic system. The title Swamped is likely a telling double entendre, referring not just to the team being physically overwhelmed by water intrusion, the curse's favorite weapon, but also being swamped with evidence. If the team unearths definitive proof of a ship's ribbing or a docking wharf structure connected to the Stone Road, it connects the dots, proving the Money Pit wasn't a standalone bank vault, but part of a massive industrial-scale operation. Of course, we can't talk about a pivotal episode without our favorite metal detection expert, Gary Drayton. With operations ramping up in both zones, the chances of a top pocket find skyrocket. While the drillers look for the vault, Gary holds the key to the WHO. Any dating evidence found now, coins, buttons, or military artifacts, could push the timeline back from the 1700s to the 1600s or earlier, potentially validating the Templar or Portuguese theories. This brings us to the real kicker, the convergence theory. Why now? Why both locations at once? If Rick and Marty are coordinating a strike on the Money Pit, while simultaneously draining or excavating a specific sector of the swamp, they are likely testing the backdoor theory. This is the idea that you cannot shut off the water in the Money Pit without first finding the valve, and that valve is hidden beneath the muck of the triangle-shaped swamp. Swamped promises to be more than just filler. It feels like the writers and producers are preparing us for a season finale payoff. We've seen the drill bits break and heard the wood-sniffing jokes, but when you combine high-tech seismic data in the pit with archaeological confirmation in the swamp, you get the distinct feeling that the island is finally running out of places to hide its secrets. Will they find the treasure vault? Maybe not this week, but Swamped might just be the episode where they find the smoking gun that proves the engineering genius behind the mystery, rewriting the history books in the process. The preview dialogue tells us a lot. SBC and Rock are here, and the directive is clear: we want something found today. Find some treasure, boys. This line may sound casual, but it is revealing. The presence of SBC, choice drilling, and rock equipment implies heavy-duty drilling or excavation, likely involving large caissons or reinforced drilling systems. When those teams are on site, it usually means the Laginas believe they are close to a target worth the risk and expense. Then comes the ominous tease: that thing looks unstoppable. In Oak Island language, unstoppable often refers to machinery pushing deeper than before or overcoming geological obstacles that previously halted progress, such as flooding, collapsing walls, or impenetrable layers. If the team has finally identified a stable pathway through the infamous underground booby traps, that alone would be a breakthrough, even before anything is found. What is particularly interesting is the tone shift. There is less talk of maybe and more emphasis on finding something today. That sense of urgency suggests the team is responding to a specific anomaly, perhaps a sonar hit, a metal detection signal, or a void detection result that is too compelling to ignore. If episode 15 delivers tangible artifacts or structural evidence from the money pit, especially anything datable, it could reframe the entire season. Even a small but verifiable object from a known historical period would be a massive step forward compared to the ambiguous scraps of wood and metal fragments that have dominated past seasons. While the money pit gets the spotlight, the swamp has quietly become one of the most intriguing locations on Oak Island. Long theorized to be artificial, or at least manipulated by humans, the swamp has been associated with ship-shaped anomalies, stone pathways, and possible to people whose motivations and risks were profound, possibly involving secrecy, survival, or power. The excitement in the team's voices, especially the disbelief captured in that no way, feels genuine. After 13 seasons, it takes a lot to surprise these guys, so when seasoned researchers react like that, it usually means the data is doing the talking. If Swamped delivers on its promises, it could mark a turning point for Season 13, and possibly the series as a whole. A verified early artifact from the swamp, combined with meaningful progress in the money pit, would give the show something it has often been criticized for lacking: forward motion with consequences. At the very least, episode 15 appears set to narrow the field of theories. At best, it could establish a credible historical framework that future episodes can build on, rather than endlessly resetting the mystery. The Curse of Oak Island has always thrived on the tension between hope and skepticism, and Swamped feels like one of those rare moments where hope might actually be justified. With heavy equipment pressing deeper in the money pit, and a potentially ancient, lab-worthy artifact emerging from the swamp, the episode promises more than just speculation. It promises direction. Whether or not treasure is finally found, episode 15 looks poised to offer something arguably more valuable: clarity. And for a mystery that has endured for centuries, and a TV show now deep into its second decade, that might be the most historic discovery of all. The title Swamped itself may be more than a literal reference to muddy conditions or swamp activity. In Oak Island tradition, episode titles often double as metaphors, and this one could point to the team being overwhelmed by discoveries, by converging evidence, or by the implications of what they are uncovering. If both the money pit and swamp yield meaningful results in the same episode, it could feel like the investigation is finally cresting after years of slow buildup. Another notable element is the apparent confidence around sending the swamp find directly to the lab. In previous seasons, many finds were debated on site for entire episodes before testing was even considered, but the immediacy here suggests the object is unmistakably man-made and potentially diagnostic. That urgency alone hints that the artifact may be structurally intact enough to preserve identifiable features, which is rare in Oak Island's corrosive environment. If the object truly resembles a key, its implications are enormous. Keys imply intentional access control, which in turn suggests the storage, containment, or protection of something valuable or sensitive. This would support theories that Oak Island functioned as a logistical hub, rather than a single-point burial site. The swamp, often theorized as a transportation or concealment zone, becomes even more important if it housed functional objects rather than mere debris. The phrase super early time period is especially provocative because it suggests a result that surprised even the researchers. The Oak Island team is accustomed to dating objects to the 1600s or 1700s. Anything earlier than that, especially if it predates formal British colonial activity, forces a re-evaluation of who had the capability and motive to operate on the island at such a scale. This also raises the question of whether the swamp discovery could help explain some of the island's most puzzling engineering feats. The flood tunnels, stone roadways, and layered construction techniques have always seemed advanced for an isolated island, and early dating could point to Old World knowledge being applied in a New World setting, strengthening theories involving European maritime powers or secretive orders. Meanwhile, progress in the money pit during episode 15 may finally address a lingering criticism of the series: that the digging never quite reaches a definitive endpoint. If the unstoppable equipment is indeed pushing through previously impenetrable layers, viewers may witness the closest thing yet to a controlled breach of the money pit's defenses. Even structural confirmation, walls, platforms, or voids, would be a major win. There is also a subtle narrative shift happening in how the team talks about their work. Less time is spent theorizing wildly, and more time is devoted to interpreting data. Phrases like moving in a direction suggest alignment rather than exploration. That is a critical distinction because it implies the investigation is narrowing instead of expanding, and episode 15 may serve as a vital setup for larger revelations later in the season. Historically, Oak Island episodes that introduce lab testing and major equipment changes tend to pay off several episodes later. The significance of the swamp artifact may not be fully revealed immediately, but its introduction here could anchor the remainder of Season 13. Emotionally, this episode seems positioned to re-energize both the team and the audience. After more than a decade on air, genuine surprise is rare, so the spontaneous excitement captured in the preview feels authentic rather than staged, which is often when the show is at its best. Those moments remind viewers why the mystery captivated them in the first place. It is also worth noting how episode 15 balances spectacle with substance. Big machines and dramatic reactions draw viewers in, but lab analysis and historical context are what ultimately lend credibility. Swamped appears to offer both, which is a difficult balance for the series to strike consistently. If the swamp artifact turns out to be ceremonial, administrative, or security-related, it could open an entirely new line of inquiry into daily life on Oak Island during its period of use. That kind of humanizing detail, tools, keys, personal items, often resonates more deeply than abstract treasure theories. Looking ahead, the episode could also influence where resources are allocated next. A meaningful swamp discovery might justify renewed excavation or draining efforts there, shifting attention away from areas that have yielded diminishing returns. That strategic pivot would signal confidence in the evidence rather than adherence to tradition. Ultimately, episode 15 feels like a crossroads. Either the discoveries will reinforce long-standing theories with hard evidence, or they will challenge the team to rethink everything they thought they knew. In either case, Swamped appears poised to be one of Season 13's most consequential chapters, an episode where Oak Island stops whispering and finally starts speaking.